It is about a young woman called Lucy. Funnily enough, I think I feel like I've done that one before with other things, with stuff with people's names in.
Hello and welcome to another Popcorn Club. This week we went to go and see Lucy. Not a friend of ours, but the film with Scarlett Johansson, Morgan Freeman. Who else is in it?
Old boy.
Old boy. Oh. Okay.
And some French dude.
Yeah. So what's it about?
The film is about a young girl called Lucy who's off on her travels, mixed up with the wrong people, ends up getting some new super drug stitched inside herself and was forced to be a drug mule, but then said drug implodes within her system, giving her essentially superpowers and leading her on a way to basic full omnipotence.
Yeah, she can
unlock the remaining 90% of the brain, which apparently is unused.
I actually think the idea of what is possible when a human can actually use the full capacity of their brain is a really interesting concept. So I was actually quite looking forward to see what they do, and I actually like Luc Besson. I enjoyed his other films.
Yeah, I think it's been a long time since he's made and directed any films. From the early to mid-90s, Leon and The Fifth Element stand out as being pretty much classics of their time. Yeah. And so it's a kind of shame to see him back doing Inferior.
Don't give it away.
Oh, come on.
So I was looking forward to seeing it, so it sounds like you were as well.
Yes.
And I don't know if you agree with me, but I think it actually started off quite promisingly. I enjoyed the first act. So the first act is where we meet Lucy, we find out that she's this flighty, person who doesn't really know what direction she's partying and sort of just travelling around Asia and mixed up with the wrong crowd. Scarlett Johansson brought that kind of character to life really well, and actually when she gets embroiled in this kind of crazy drug lord like scheme, I think there's some really strong work there from her, and I think the guy who plays like the kingpin, what is his name? The guy from Old Boy.
Yeah, we're just going to call him Old Boy from now on. And we don't know,
he was great as well in terms of being this massive, like, crazy threat that you're like, what the hell is he going to do next?
I didn't get on with her character at the beginning, or kind of at any point in the film, sadly. I didn't really connect with her character at any point. At the beginning, the bits where you kind of enjoyed it, we were kind of thrown in, and it just felt like we were given more of a stereotypical character, and I guess that's kind of the shorthand the film was working with, because it's only a 90-minute film. The first act is kind of truncated, which is kind of good in the way, and it gets sort of thrown in there, but I think the way that Luc Besson went about doing that whole first act, you weren't really given much to connect with her. She was kind of very passive in that she was forced into doing this thing by this guy she was with, who's knocked off, and then she's immediately thrown into this other situation where she's forced into it. And the only real emotion you have on her face is sort of kind of blind terror. And I don't think it came across. I don't think it came across that well for me at all, which is a bit of a shame. Also, in that first act, it's kind of cutting between what's going on there. Morgan Freeman delivering his
exposition lecture,
which is a bit jarring as well, and also random wildlife sequences, which I didn't really understand the point it was making. I couldn't really work out where I was going with that, and it kind of dropped all that stuff kind of afterwards. If it was kind of going to be kind of eclectic all the way through and doing all these fun, interesting, maybe different things, then all it had, if it was building to something with it, then fine. But it kind of just threw it in there at the beginning just to be a bit almost
quirky
wacky
way
or
of
different,
telling the story,
and then dropped it. And Old Boy again, I thought he was really good and menacing and really having fun and hamming it up. And it kind of felt like he got the tone of where the film was kind of going, and he was having a lot of fun with it and being enough suitably terrifying and crazy that it was kind of a bit ridiculous, but in the way that fitted where the film was going.
About a third of the way through the film is where it all starts to unravel. So when the drug starts to leak into her system, and she goes from being this just terrified girl to morphing slowly as the percentage of her brain that she's able to access into this like superhuman entity, she sort of suddenly goes into a similar mode that we saw her in Under the Skin, in that she becomes this kind of vacant machine-like creature,
which I don't think there's nothing wrong with that in principle.
No, but we saw it better in Under the Skin.
I think the problem that the film has with it, in both Under the Skin and Her, there are kind of these non-human creatures trying to understand how humans work, and where Lucy is kind of like the reverse of that, where she starts off as a human character, and then as soon as she is kind of set on this path to becoming this omnipotent being, which is essentially what she is, where she can control everything. She's just completely unfazed by anything around her, and there's just no real way of connecting with her conflict. The one thing it has going is it's like a ticking time bomb where she has to reach the end game before she gets to 100%, or she has to get to 100% brain power before she just disintegrates completely because they run out of the drugs. I don't think there's any real sense of that she's going to get there, and there's only one or two instances where she really feels any kind of peril when first time she starts to explode, and you're like, okay, it's interesting, but kind of aside from that, throughout the rest of the film, she's just swatting everything off and dealing with it, and as the film goes on, she just becomes completely in control of everything, like the car chase through the streets of Paris, which on the surface could be really fun, interesting. I think it was filmed really well, and it was, I think, probably the biggest set piece of the film, but throughout that scene, she's just sitting in the car, completely just driving along, and that's how I felt watching it.
I thought they underused Morgan Freeman, sadly. That happens quite a lot with him, because he's just Mr. Exposition man.
Well, he's become sci-fi exposition creature.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Although,
and we know he's capable of so much more, so it was a shame to just see him basically deliver a lecture, and that was about it.
But I think in these sorts of films, and in the condition that he's in, sadly, these days, he's not going to be running around jumping, doing anything.
Wouldn't expect him to do that, but like if you look at the work that he does in something like Shawshank Redemption,
do more of those films, not expect him to do more in these sorts of films, really.
Towards the end, it just all starts falling apart, really. It just starts to descend into ridiculousness, and I really question the fact that, if you take the concept of what would humans be capable of if they could access more of their brain power, I really don't think it would look like that. Just made no sense. It was just bonkers, and not even bonkers in a good way. I was just thinking, when you were talking about how, it was the opposite of Under the Skin and Her, in that, they went from being these kind of superhuman things to finding humanity. What I didn't like was they tried to put a bit of in that with that weird kind of romance flirtation with the police officer, which just felt tacked on and ridiculous. Like, they didn't. Why put that in there? She felt like, oh, it's useful for me to kiss you so that I can remember that I used to be a normal human.
I don't think it felt like romantic or tacked on. It felt like it was a way of showing how she was almost so disconnected from her past self and humanity at that point that that's what she thought would work, and useless. That's kind of how ridiculous she was. I thought it was added to the ridiculousness of the feeling of the end of it. Sadly, I think this had a lot of promise on paper, did not deliver at all. Started relatively sort of strongly in the first third, descended into absolute ridiculous, mad, bonkers farce. I'm going to give it a 6. Coming off the back of 2 other superb Scarlett Johansson sci-fi films earlier on this year, there was a high bar to live up to, and this one is sat right in the middle of just mediocre summer popcorn action nonsense. So yeah, for me it's just a 5, unfortunately. Next week we're going to go and see Night Moves, which could be interesting. I don't know much about it. It's always fun. Have you seen Lucy? How did you feel about it? Let us know in a comment. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed already, so you can always be notified of new videos from the Popcorn Club, and who doesn't want that? And we will see you next time. Bye. Did not enjoy that.